What's up YouTube? Welcome back to my shop. No build project this week. I thought instead I would give you a tour of my dust collection system and try to answer as many questions as I can. I get asked questions all the time about dust collection and my setup, so I want to address as many of those as possible. I also have a couple new tools that I have not connected to my system, so I'm going to go ahead and set those up and you can see me in my process. So let's start off with the actual dust collector itself. This is my dust collector. It's an Oneida V Series 3 horsepower Cyclone dust system, and it's a beast. So you've got the Cyclone that goes down to a 35-gallon steel drum. I have a sensor on that drum so that if the dust gets too high within it, I get a strobe light that goes off alerting me that I need to empty it. It runs on its own dedicated electrical, so I've got a 230 volt outlet over on the side that I plug it into. It has a 3 horsepower motor at the top, and as you can tell, this is a pretty tall system. I am in a basement, but I have fairly tall ceilings for a basement. And just for perspective, I am 6'2". You can see how much taller this is to me. It has one port in the front that I connected 6-inch ductwork to that goes up to the ceiling, and then it runs the length of my ceiling all the way down to my tools. This particular system, I also have a remote control setup for it, which is a lifesaver. I cannot work without that, and I always keep that hooked on my belt loop whenever I'm working in my shop. Right now I only have 3 tools connected to my system, and this system can support way more than that. But I also have a fairly long shop, and I wanted to make sure I had enough horsepower to cover the entire area. 2 of the tools I have are right here, the joiner and the planer. So I have my 6-inch ductwork going down, I have it splitting off, and then I have 4-inch reducers going down and 2 4-inch flex tubes that are connected to the joiner and the planer. Now there are a couple ways that you could really optimize this if you wanted to. Instead of having your 4-inch reducer up here, I could probably lower it down if I wanted to. I could also do the piping all the way down as low as possible to the dust port in the tool. So there's a couple things that you could do to modify this. It might help out a little bit, but as far as setting this up, this system has worked out really well for me. This is where my dust collection got a little bit funky, and that's because I have this beam and then major ductwork right in the middle of my shop. Now the dust collector's on the other side of that beam, so what I had to do was run my line diagonally, go up over all of this, then circle back down to get to my table saw. If I really wanted to make this simple, I could have did my dust collection drop on the other side of the ductwork where the dust collector is, and just went straight down to the tool. The thing is while that would be way more efficient, it would also be in my way, and I think I would get so annoyed, I would end up just chopping it in half. To make this as efficient as possible, I used multiple elbows so that the ductwork kind of swoops up over this beam and then comes back down. I have it going down to a 6 to 4-inch reducer, my 4-inch pipe, my 4-inch blast gate, and then my flex hose that goes to my tool. When I originally set up the shop, I planned to have my tools on the other side. So instead of just having my line drop down to my saw, I went ahead and used a Y splitter and then had pipe going further down that way. But I decided to move things around. I'm not going to do that anymore. So I don't need to have all of this, and I'm actually going to repurpose that for today's project. Here's the area that I'm going to add on to my dust collection for today. I've got 2 tools. I have the drum sander and the CNC, and they are the dustiest tools in the shop, yet I don't have any dust collection hooked up to them. So that's something we definitely have to fix. The drum sander has a 4-inch port to it. That one should be pretty simple. The CNC has a 2.5-inch port, so I'm gonna have to go from 6-inch pipe all the way down to 2.5-inch pipe and try to do it as gradually as possible. Before I work on my dust collection, I feel like I need to make a statement. Dust collection seems to be like the road rage of woodworking for some reason. I don't really know why, but people get really passionate and really angry about it. And some of the worst comments I've ever gotten on YouTube have been about this subject. So what I'm saying is that if you see me doing certain things when it comes to dust collection in my shop, or if you've got some awesome ideas on dust collection, feel free to post comments below explaining those. However, I do ask you to be courteous to your fellow woodworker, and remember, we're all supposed to be having fun here. This is how I'm going to connect my new tools to my existing line. I need to disconnect the ductwork over here, and I'm going to repurpose the Y that I have over by my table saw, put it over here, and have this ductwork gradually swoop over this ductwork and my beam and take it to the other side of the shop. To make this a little bit easier on myself, I'm going to try to assemble as much as I can on the floor and then raise those pieces up to connect them. This is the section that I took down from my table saw, and I'm gonna add on this Y, and then that's gonna have my drop down that goes to the drum sander, and then this will keep going on, and that's gonna go over to the CNC. So I thought I'd take a moment to talk about the actual materials itself, because that's the part that was really confusing for me whenever I started putting together a dust collection system. The majority of the stuff that I bought, I got from the home center, so my local big box store. The only thing that I really special ordered was the Y, and I'll tell you why in a minute. Why? Oh, that's terrible. I'm using 6-inch ductwork, and it is 26 gauge metal. So this is the stuff that you typically find for HVAC systems. So if you go to your Lowe's, Home Depot, those types of places, that's what you can find. And yes, it does feel a little bit flimsy. The biggest concern that people have when it comes to the gauge of the metal is they think the ductwork's gonna collapse on them. And I can say that I'm running a 3 horsepower system, plenty of power. I've never had that happen before. But you also want to make sure that you have at least one blast gate open on one of your tools. Because of the way the dust flows through the pipes, you want to have the crimped end towards your dust collector. That way you don't have the inside of these pipes inside the next pipe, and then those are areas that would stop the dust from getting all the way through, and your pipe can get clogged. So that's the backwards way of typical HVAC. And that's the reason why I ordered my Y online, because if you go to the big box store, you may get lucky and find one like this where the crimped part is towards the dust collector, but usually it's the opposite. These parts here will be crimped. That's not really what you want. Now, there's a ways around that. You could cut off the crimping and then use one of these tools here, and it's a crimping tool, and you can go around and notch it all if you want to do that. It's kind of a pain in the butt. Or you could just order one of these online. They seem to cost about the same as one you buy in the store. You just gotta wait for it to come in the mail. So I will try to put a link in the description to sources online where you can get one of these. They're really not that expensive. You're gonna be tempted to use a T-branch. Instead of having a Y that gently flows down, it just is the abrupt turn. Try to avoid those unless you absolutely have to. Sometimes you have to. And I always recommend elbows. So these, I think these are like 30 gauge. They feel really thin, but since these elbows kind of go into each other, you don't have to worry about them collapsing, even though they're a thinner gauge. So put multiple elbows together and try to slope your turns as much as possible. That's just gonna keep the air flowing through your system better. Now that I have this pipe, I'm gonna connect a Y on both ends and some elbows. So how I'm gonna do this is I'm gonna connect the Y to the end that goes to my tool. I'm gonna connect a couple elbows to the other side. I can slide that into place, and then I'll connect the Y to that and to my main trunk. You remember what I said about parts being backwards when it comes to HVAC compared to dust collection? Well, somehow I need to connect this to this. For those who are new to dust collection, this is a blast gate, and it's an absolute must to have these in your system. You don't have to buy them, you can make your own. I've never done it, but I've seen people who have. Essentially what it is a door that you can open and close that controls the airflow to a particular tool. Whenever you're woodworking, you're working on one tool, you have the blast gate open, so it sucks all of the dust from that tool while you close all the rest of the blast gates to your other tools. That way you get maximum suckage to the one tool. Suckage. This is the part where the dust collection goes and connects to my table saw. Now what I have is 6-inch pipe going down to 4-inch, down to my blast gate, and then a flex hose that runs from here all the way down to my saw. So what I think I'm gonna do is I'm gonna remove this 4-inch pipe and replace it with a 6-inch pipe, leave the blast gate, put another 4-inch pipe down below, and then this flex hose I can actually cut in half, use half of it for the table saw, half of it for the drum sander over there, and I should get way more efficient dust collection to my table saw because I won't have this long hose. This is the reducer that I just took off the table saw. And what I forgot is that I installed a 6-inch to a 5-inch and then a 5-inch to a 4-inch. That's really what you want, is that gradual taper down. I didn't do that on the new tools because, well, I forgot to buy the middle piece, but oh well, it's all good. This is our 6-inch pipe that is replacing our 4-inch pipe. And you can see how it usually comes from the store. It is not fully enclosed. I mean, I'm sure you can buy some that's enclosed. Mine is not. So really easy. All we have to do is snap this into this. No big deal. I like to go right on the edge. Put this in that slot right there. And then work my way down. Ah, you hear that sound? That means it's nice and good. If you're wondering, I usually only put between 2 to 4 screws in it. I essentially do screws until it's snug and it's not going anywhere. And then when I add my duct tape, my foil tape, then I know it's all sealed. See? That's not going anywhere. Now you can see how much less flex hose I'm really gonna need. I can connect it here, and then all the rest of this I can cut off and use over the drum sander. Everything's looking good, just a few minor things to clean up. I want to take some tape and tape all the seams I didn't tape before, make sure everything's nice and tight, then we can try this thing out. I'm ecstatic with what I'm seeing. Now's time for the true test. I need to cut out a couple things on the CNC for a customer. That's the messiest tool in the shop. Let's give it a go. I ran my CNC for over an hour and a half, and I have to say that it is cleaner now than before I even started. So I'm ecstatic. I'm glad I finally hooked it up. And now that I look around and I see that most of my tools are connected to dust collection, I guess it's time to go buy more tools. If you're installing a dust collection system or you're making modifications to your existing one, I hope this video helped you in some way. And if you have a dust collection system, leave me a comment below. Let me know about your system and how many tools you have hooked up to it. It's always great to hear about other people's shops, and we can all learn together. If you like this video, then please hit the like button and subscribe to the channel. And until we meet again, get in your shop and build something awesome.